Hey, deserving listeners, 90 Day Fiancé. Let's watch.
It just feels really weird this morning. I don't know what I'm going to tell her, but I'm stuck. I feel like she's checked out.
Yeah, okay. So it sounds like he's going to leave, or at least not hang out with her anymore. And yeah, and now from a viewer's point of view, you might all be yelling at him or ridiculing him, saying like, of course, Ben, you're an idiot for not having realized this earlier. But love is love, right? And it takes a while for those neurons to catch up. And for him, he came down to Peru believing that he was, and he had good reason, given what conversations they had over texting, that this was pure, true love. The sort of love that you only find in metaphors on trains, that kind of thing. And so for him, he, not that long ago, I think it was just a few days ago, he was totally in love. His future is all planned out. Everything is going to be great. It's going to be wonderful. And that has been chipped away quite quickly over the past few days or something, week or something. And now he's at a point, and pretty quickly he started to question what's going on here. And it makes total sense that given his scenario, he's down there, he might as well make sure and say like, well, but it felt so good before and it seemed real. And so, let me really, it feels like it's not real. Well, you don't want to just pack your bags and go home. You want to, is it really not real? I really want to make sure. And I think, he's hit a critical mass in terms of the data and the vibe really from her that it's just not really there, that she doesn't really love him. She doesn't really want to be with him. She doesn't want to kiss him. She doesn't want to plan for the future. She doesn't want to hug him, the hug of like, ugh. And I mean, I'm exaggerating, but so it's taken him a bit of time, but not a long time to wake up to what's happening, seemingly. Because the other part of this is that Mahogany isn't being upfront. If she had, who knows, maybe she is being upfront, but it seems pretty clear that she's not into him. If we don't know if she ever was, but since he landed. And she could tell him, like, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm just not really into you. And now maybe Mahogany is totally in love with him. Maybe Mahogany doesn't know she has turned away in terms of her heart, but I don't blame Ben, is my point, for taking a bit of time to figure it out. Now, you could criticize him for dating someone so much younger than him. You could blame him for saying, why would you bank so much on just texting instead of, because I think he never talked to her on the phone, because it wasn't that a thing in the beginning of the season. It's like, yeah, she's shy, we've never video chatted anyway. So, but he's coming around, and I hope that for him, he learns from this and is like, dating is weird. You can get your hopes up and have them be dashed in an instant. Maybe I'll catalog that and remember that the next time that I have these feelings. It's like, maybe the next time he has these feelings, hopefully he'll be like, well, maybe these feelings are indicative of something that is true and will last, or maybe this is just me having an upwelling of longing, and I have this fantasy that I'm falling in love with. So anyway, he's now learning, and it sounds like he's going to go talk to Mahogany and the parents and say, I'm sorry. Now, hopefully, well, I don't know. I imagine this will be messy, at least somewhat, so let's watch.
I went into detail with my ex-fiancé. I gave her all the answers she needed. I must have written her about 10 pages of text, and I got no response.
So that's, according to him, what all those texts were he was getting the impression like, oh, I really screwed up by not fully answering the question when she asked me what happened with my previous partners. And so he lays it all out there, and sounds like he was saying, look, me and my ex-wife have a really good relationship. I'm not here to say that I hate her or we hate each other. Like, things are good or whatever. He was trying to lay all that out, hoping that she would turn around and say, oh, okay, well, red flag erased or downgraded to yellow flag, let the love begin. And when that didn't happen, he's saying, well, that was my last sort of effort. It's time to go home.
I don't know how you do that to somebody, when they pour their heart out. I had my morning devotions, and the very first verse that pops up, my verse of the day, is that there is no fear in love. And that just really hit me.
There's a lot of fear in love. In fact, with love, there's always fear. Fear of losing your partner, fear of your partner hating you, fear of your partner disapproving of you, fear of your partner being with someone else if you don't have that kind of arrangement, fear of your partner hurting you in the way that they've hurt you in the past or in the way other people have hurt. There's always fear. So this notion that, but it's such a fantasy version, right? And I don't know what he means by fear or love in this instance, but it kind of fits with Ben's lack of experience. That's what I'm saying. He doesn't have experience with dating, according to him, right? He very quickly was married and then divorced recently and then dated someone online, similar to Mahogany. And I suspect even if he dated a couple other people in that zone, it wouldn't be unusual for him to have a pretty rudimentary understanding of love and emotion and of what love is supposed to look like, right? It's not uncommon for someone younger to have a very fantasy version of what love is supposed to be like. In fact, one of the things that I run into with young people, sometimes who watch this channel, and sometimes the cast members, that they'll say, it's like, if there's ever infidelity, we're done, And what I'll say to that is, that's fine. You can have your own personal choices around that and deal breakers. But one of the things that I see people do in reality is that when infidelity happens, which it happens occasionally, then people don't choose to have that be a deal breaker because the love is more important than that. I mean, to find someone that you could spend the rest of your life with is hard. And so to just be like, well, that's a deal breaker, you might be giving up something that is worth salvaging. And some couples are even better after infidelity. So, if they go to therapy and work on things. So anyway, my point is that and the older you get, the more you kind of realize that in general, not always, but I'll hear younger people, they have these because in their mind, they're thinking, well, true love, infidelity won't happen. If we're really in love with each other, then infidelity just won't happen. And the fact is that even when you totally love someone, that infidelity can happen. And two, even when you totally love someone, it doesn't mean that the love doesn't kind of come and go or go in phases, sine wave over time. So, and that doesn't mean it's a bad relationship. But of course, if you just watch the Disneys and the rom-coms, then love is forever, love is always, love never, has any complications to it. It doesn't have any dark moments or any kind of, dirt spots in it. Anyway, point is that for him, this notion of there is no fear in love, and that is, I guess, a convenient way of propagating a certain religious point of view that, well, so I'm wondering even what that devotion means, right? That there's no fear in love. Does that mean like when you're afraid of, like, I'm afraid that my partner's going to leave me. I'm afraid of dying. I'm afraid of, I don't know, whatever our common fears are. But with love, and I'm guessing what the devotion is talking about isn't necessarily always referring to a partner. It's referring to just like love of God or love of the universe. And so one should, because I don't know about other religions, but mainstream Christian culture concerns itself a lot with fear because we have a lot of fears. And the devotions and the sermons will often address the fears that we have: fear of disease, fear of divorce, fear of death, fear of financial ruin, this kind of thing, because a lot of us have those kinds of worries. And there's various different lessons that will help and inspire people to weather the storm. One being that God has a plan, or God is watching over you, or God is giving you this challenge to see how you're going to do. Lesson here is the universe or God or karma or something, it has a plan for you. And to worry along the way is irrational, because you can't control karma, you can't control God, you can't control what God has in plan for you, you know, those kinds of things. And that can help, you know, it can help to just be like, well, you know, God's watching over me, and whatever happens, it's God's plan, and God is good, and God loves me. And so even though this sucks right now, I just have to trust. And so I think that's possibly what that devotion is referring to. You know, there's no fear in love. But anyway, so it plays into, though, Ben's, I think, inexperienced notion of what love is, which is that she has fear of me, and therefore there's something wrong with her love, instead of concluding, I don't know if she ever loved me at all.
That's all I'm getting from her is fear. She's afraid of my intentions. She's afraid of what her parents are going to say. She's afraid of what her friends are going to say. There shouldn't be any fear in this. So I've decided not to go to breakfast today.
So you're just going to ghost her? Okay. I mean, on a certain level, it wouldn't be unjust, given, I think, what is happening, right? That Mahogany never did love him, or at least didn't love him as much as she was coming across over texting. Who knows? But so, yeah, he's saying she shouldn't be afraid of me. And so on one level, you'd say, well, yeah, I mean, if someone is really in love with you along these lines, then they shouldn't be that afraid of you, right? They shouldn't be that suspicious, because I thought all that was already ironed out before. Because there's not anything super inherently scary about my past, you know? I just gave a little bit of detail about my ex-wife, and now you're convinced that I'm this horrible person. You know, that doesn't seem like a rational way. And I tried to explain over texting anyway. So on one level, okay. On another level, I'm sure there are people watching this and being like, she has every reason to be afraid of you. You're 30 years older. She just turned 22, and you're this foreigner who, all the fears of like exploitation and of control and your motivations. Like, how come you're not dating someone at least closer to you? Like, why are you so investing in someone that you've never talked to before, with just, you knew how old I was, or how old I was lying. I told you I was 23 when you first started a relationship with me. What kind of person does that? What's going on here? So, I don't know if all of that is warranted, honestly. You fall in love with who you fall in love. Now, of course, what we would hope is that he would address, like, why am I even bothering to entertain relationships with women in their early 20s? Not that that is a horrible thing or inherently disgusting or destructive, but it should be a question in his mind of just like, what's going on there? Is it sexism? Is it a fantasy? The other thing I'll say, and I don't know if I've said this already, but in relation to that inexperiencedness of him, is he might actually have a hard time relating dating-wise to people his own age, not because of age, but because of they have more experience and they've been around the block. And he's looking for, he goes on a date with someone his own age and he starts to have feelings, and the other person is just like, well, okay, I guess I'm having feelings for you too, but I've been down this road 8 other times. And whereas for him, he's perhaps never had that in love feeling before Mahogany, and is looking for that. He's looking for people to share in that fantasy, and not consciously necessarily, maybe it's an unconscious thing of just like, he gets a vibe that younger people are more prone to that kind of fantasy. Of course, there are young people who are not prone to that fantasy. The point is that there's that element to it. The other element is that he is essentially saying, she's choosing to be afraid of me, therefore it's her fault. Instead of just being like, maybe I'm just not that appealing, or maybe there is something kind of weird about her, instead of looking at a lot of the reasons why she wouldn't want to be with him that I think a lot of other people would point to.
I mean, knowing her, she's probably going to harden her heart even more against me, is my suspicion. but I don't want to just to be on the fence this whole time. So if this pushes her over the edge, so be it.
Yeah, I think that's good. I mean, his narrative is a little funny, but not awful. And he's like, look, I'm not going to go to breakfast, and if she hates me for it, so be it. I think this is a lost cause anyway. So under the circumstances, I think that's totally fine. And like I've been saying since he first met her, I'm like, I think we're hoping that this ends and he just goes back home and he reevaluates and the two of them just go their separate ways.
Un poco herido, pero creo que le hubiera tomado un poco de tiempo mandarme un mensaje y decir que no iba a venir al desayuno en vez de dejarme esperándolo. Es muy vergonzoso que mis padres vean esto. Quieren ver si en realidad está conmigo o está cuidándome.
Yeah, I imagine it is embarrassing, and maybe you shouldn't have been essentially catfishing him this whole time. I don't know if she was catfishing him or, but at the very least, I think if we saw the text, we would be convinced that a very desperate Ben is reasonable in imagining that she was legitimately in love and legitimately had affection for him. But that doesn't seem to be the case. It's hard to know, but if you just zoom out and say, well, at least some of this is my fault because I was telling him I loved him, I wanted to have kids with him. Now, people would look at Ben and say, like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you thought she was 23. She was, she was actually 21. It was clear she had a fake filter on a variety of things. Like, what are you doing? So, but at the very least, you would hope that she would say, maybe I shouldn't have said those things because at the very least, I didn't retain those feelings and perhaps never felt them at all.
Y esto no da una buena impresión de él.
¿Tampoco le has puesto ahí que estoy con mi familia?
No.
Se pone ya ahorita ya no es.
This is just a pet peeve of mine. Just why 3 texts with 1 sentence? My parents, they are here. Just say, my parents are here. Just 1 text. Is that a cultural thing? Like with younger people? I don't know. Like anyway. That's just me talking as a citizen. It's just a pet peeve. Because if you're right there and you're watching the text come in, it's fine. But if you put your phone down, you come back and you have like 39 texts, you're like, whoa. And you look at it's just like 3 sentences over 39 texts. You're like, why are you doing that? Well, that's weird. So he wants to talk with the parents privately without her there. Why? Why would you do that? What could possibly be gained by that? Maybe he wants to apologize?
Benjamin quiere hablar con ustedes a privado y no conmigo.
¿Tú qué intuyes o qué crees que pueda decirnos?
No lo sé. Aunque no sé, qué extraño. Yo quiero hablar con ustedes en privado.
I imagine, I'm just going to take a guess, he wants to talk with them and say, can I show you the texts that your dear daughter, is sending people? Because she might be doing this to other people. That's pretty vindictive. If I were his friend, I'd be like, just go home. Just put it all behind you. All right, well, that is it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.